We live in a world of entertainment, and everybody thinks that that is the prime goal of life. In the meantime, we are here on this earth of ours for a short period of time, and the main task is self-mastery. Mastery of the self. And if you look at our education, it gives you the basic ideas, all the basic ideas of how to cope with life on the external material side of things, but very little about what is happening inside.
Why would women make the decision to abandon her child?
For me, I believe it is there are young women who have not told their parents that they were pregnant. Sometimes it's women that don't even realize that they're pregnant, or have HIV positive. They're HIV positive and they're worried that their child's going to be the same. And the bottom line is also finances.
Self-doubt and depression and emotional issues today around child rearing and family is quite a big problem. And so when a time of crisis, be it any form of crisis or any form of stress, comes to confront the person, they don't have the ability to actually work through the crisis and to hold their own and to have the thought structures and the emotional discipline in place to be able to cope with such a situation.
I agree with both of the other two people over here, but just to add on to what they're saying and to agree with Melanie again, is that financial situation and mother's financial situation is a huge part of why they aren't able to look after their children. A lot of them don't have their own houses, can't feed themselves, don't have jobs, so how can they look after another child? Other reasons may be because they have postnatal depression, because they're unhealthy, because their children are unhealthy, and they're not able to cope with their children.
As these kids grow up, how can we help them?
Education, of course, is the answer. But as I've said before here a few times now, I'm talking about another kind of education. Not an education that just educates the head. An education that also educates the will. An education that educates the feeling life of a person.
We need to love these children. We need to love all our children so that they can build up a positive self-esteem, so that they can feel good about themselves. And I guess we still also need to educate the community. Not that everybody needs to know that Johnny is an abandoned child and that Sammy has this other kind of background. But it's just important for the community to know that children come from all different backgrounds, and we need to respect the backgrounds of, like our different cultures. So this is a different background.
There's not one way in which we can help children that have been through these emotional crises in their past. And like Melanie said, love and support is the best way to help a child. Also, to answer their questions that they have, no matter what the question is, as being as open and as honest with children. And also, like Melanie said, is for everyone not to know what's happening in your life and not to label children that have been abandoned or have been abused or anything like that. They just like anybody else, and they need to be treated like anybody else. They may have certain health conditions, like maybe fetal alcohol syndrome, or maybe their parents, their mother was using drugs while they were pregnant. So health concerns and health issues, we can also help them with and make sure that they get the right support and the right education. But there's a huge, vast amount of things that we can do. But it's about loving, and it's about caring, and it's about respecting people and respecting these children. And I think that's one of the most important things, and how we can actually help them.
I appeal to all parents to love and care for their children unconditionally. Some of these babies have been found in the bush and in rubbish bins. What touched me most was when this baby tried to wear my shoes. I immediately pictured my children mimicking me, dressing in my clothes, and playing with my makeup. These children will never have this, living in a foster home. Please, if you are unable to care for your child, tell someone or drop them at a place like Christine Revel in your area. Life is sacred. Let's keep our babies safe. Abandoned babies, how does this affect their chances of becoming a loving adult?
I have to start with the screening and the preparation of the people, the adoptive parents or the foster parents who are going to look after these babies. And that's where it starts. And in the screening, and I will refer to Cape Town Child Welfare because the screening helps them to prepare them how to tell this child one day that they have been, well, they don't use the word abandoned. It's not lied about, but it's explained in a caring way, in a way to say to the child that your mother was very young, she did not know where to go to for help, and the policeman or whoever it was that had found the child has brought the child to us. And this is what's important, that the child needs to know it's the child that is loved and that the mother loved that child. Because if you feel that you're loved, then that's the best thing. If you know that your mother or your father was a terrible person, you yourself feel like that. So it's important in preparation and the screening and assessment for the prospective adoptive parents or foster parents or even the emergency caring people looking after these children.
Well, education can always play a role, and I think here it is insight into the fact that life is not just about offering opportunities, but also taking them. And whether one has had a certain kind of history in coming into the world, it's still a matter of having enough insight into being able to take the opportunities that come your way. And if that is so, there is an equal possibility for such a person to attain whatever any other person can attain.
Living with other people is often very difficult, and I believe personally that one needs to know about where they were from, who brought them up, who their parents were, what their cultures were, who their brothers and sisters were, and finding out all that information about your biological parents is very important for when you're older, because then those questions are answered and you're not left with a sense of no identity. Because a lot of the children that we have, if they're brought up without their real parents, they ask themselves, who are they? Where do I come from? They have no real true sense of self. And if you don't have a true sense of self, how are you going to be able to give that to anybody else? So knowing who you are is very important in being able to love yourself and love other people.
What advice would you give to a mother who's faced with the desperate choice of abandoning her child?
For me, the bottom line is education. We come back to Doe's, what he's been talking about the whole afternoon here, is that education of the community, education at the school, so children, young children know where they can go to when there are problems, and the adults and the community, so that if a young woman or even in the 20s falls pregnant by mistake or she's been raped, she will know where she can go to, so that she knows that there are